All right, we are live. How is everyone doing? How are you doing? My name is Joseph Googie, one of the co-founders of Pre-PT Grind, and this is
What's up? What's up? Dr. Casey Coleman,
Mm.
DPT, another one of the co-founders of Pre-PT Grind. Let's go. Let's get it.
And every Thursday, we come on to serve you. We come on live to serve you. We try our best to just pour out as much content as possible, whether it's image posts or podcasts and so on and so forth. But every Thursday night, we want to come and serve you personally, live, answer your questions in real time, but also share something that is currently on our hearts that we feel as though you would value as a pre-PT student. And so tonight, our topic is, if you stay in your head, you're dead. This is based on a quote that I heard a few months ago. And initially, it just caught my attention just because, anything that sounds relatively close to, if it has the word dead in it, it catches your attention, one way or another. And so it caught my attention. And I asked the individual that told me about that phrase what it meant. And they said, well, there's so many times when we're getting in our own head with everything. Before any major action, we overthink it until we pretty much just send ourselves down a rabbit hole, a place that most of us have a hard time coming out of unless we have assistance from somebody else. And so as a pre-PT, I know that was a challenge for me as a PT student. I know that was a challenge for me. And I know as a physical therapist, there have been moments where that has still been a challenge for me, getting in my own head. If you stay in your head, you're dead. So let's start with this. This week, I was speaking with a pre-PT student who was preparing for the GRE. And I'm only sharing this story because it's a story that a lot of other pre-PT students, a lot of other pre-physical therapy students can relate with. But this individual was preparing for the GRE as they were taking their practice exams. They had put in the effort, the time, the work, the practice on all the sections that they needed in order to prepare for that practice exam. Even better, they were taking a practice examination just so that they could get comfortable with the flow of the exam. And as they took it, they contacted me later saying that partway through, they pretty much just blanked. They were stuck. Halfway through the practice exam, they were just stuck. They were just like, man, Joseph, I don't know what happened. I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm ready for this thing. And so that internalizing that fear, that anxiety, that frustration actually led to that individual pretty much generalizing and agreeing to the fact, or at least accepting internally, that they were not capable of actually doing well on the exam. And we had a good conversation, but I thought about it and I was like, man, that's one of the biggest hurdles for pre-PTs, period. Isn't it? I mean, think about it. Think about it. When you're considering what schools you're applying to, at some point you'll be looking through the websites, which is good. You'll be looking at feedback from other students that have gone there before, and you start comparing yourself. You start comparing yourself to students that are applying there, to students that you are associated with, to your classmates. And so something in our heads tells us maybe we're not as capable as we thought. Maybe we're not as capable as we thought. As soon as we let that seed germinate or like start to grow in our minds, then, well, now it starts to reflect on our actions. So where we would have otherwise, what's up, Aaron Taylor? How you doing, brother? Like where we would have otherwise focused before, like we actually have a hard time with that. We have a hard time staying locked in because now you start doubting everything. You start doubting everything. And right now, if pre-PT, you as a pre-PT student are the target of this message, but this applies to anybody. This really applies to anybody, but it's something that I really struggled with. My second year of PT school, I remember really, really getting in my head. And I've shared this story before, but it's for me on this journey to becoming a clinician. This is the closest thing I have to really being at the lowest point in terms of my mindset as at that point, future clinician. Right. And so it's, man, so my second semester during my second year, Casey, you remember, it was a pretty busy spring semester. It was a pretty busy second semester. And so at that time, I do remember just being stuck and saying, wow, like there's no way I'm going to be able to handle this. An exam or two had thrown me off. So that led me to believe maybe I won't be able to make it. Obviously, there was also a threshold for, what the passing score was in a class. And so if you did not get past that for a certain amount of classes, you could get kicked out of the program. Like I'm telling y'all, like I immediately went from one bad test to another doing worse, even though I was working harder towards it because I had gotten in my head. That was the same semester that I sat my fiance down and I said, you know what? I think I stole somebody else's seat. I think I stole somebody else's seat in this physical therapy program. I don't think I was meant to be here. Y'all have to understand, I had gotten accepted into PT school. And for you, that probably sounds ridiculous because your pursuit right now is to get into PT school. So I'd already gotten accepted. But at this point, I'm halfway through the program and I got in my head. I started telling myself that I wasn't even worthy. I didn't even deserve to be in that PT program. I said, to the point where I said, shoot, I honestly think I stole this seat. I don't deserve this seat. I'm not qualified for this seat. I'm not qualified to be a clinician. I'm not qualified to be a physical therapist. It took me down a rabbit hole, y'all. It took me down a rabbit hole and it was hard to get out of it for a while. My fiance, she was my girlfriend at the time, but like she was one of the biggest agents. Changing my environment was huge. But if I had stayed there, there's a good chance that semester could have potentially gotten me kicked out of physical therapy school. Not because I was not capable, but because I had put myself in a mental state where I honestly did not believe I was capable. And that sometimes is more detrimental than anything else. Did y'all know that with the GRE, for example, it's funny, with the GRE, whenever we take a practice exam and then we get in our own heads and we say, well, I guess that's the score I'm qualified for. And let's say you get a cumulative, like a 280 combined, right? So if your goal is to get to like a 300 or whatever, like the only time we get a huge jump in this whole academic game is when we've been in a state of being in our own heads and we pull out of it. If I've put in all the effort I need or all the work I need and I get like a 295, the chances are, like, unless I just did not work hard before or I didn't do all the right things before, my score will improve, but it's not going to jump like 20 points. That just doesn't happen. That usually happens when we have previously been in our own heads and we finally get ourselves out of it. Joseph, what does that mean? Well, the first time you took it, you were insanely terrified during the exam, so you couldn't focus. So halfway through, you started telling yourself you couldn't do it. So you couldn't even read the questions right. So you started second guessing everything. And the second time you had actually figured it out, you had prepared well, you had the right people in your head, and you were focused. And whoa, you actually had a score that was much better. It's everything. It's everything. But one thing that I know for sure is that if you stay in your head, you're dead. If you stay in your head, you're setting yourself up to not even have a chance at potentially reaching what your potential is. And I don't really care what that is for you right now. It could be absolutely anything. But whatever it is, if you're overanalyzing everything, and I'm a thinker, and that's why naturally it's easier for me to get into that state of mind. But at the end of the day, like if you are overanalyzing every move, you're never going to take action. If I'm overanalyzing everything when I'm studying for the GRE, I'm never going to take action. If I'm overanalyzing everything for my interview, I'm never going to get to the point where I'm just like ready to do it. Right? I'll be so overconsumed by the fact that I'm potentially not capable that I never really show myself to be capable. Does that make sense? And then the funny thing is, we then tell ourselves, see, Joseph, told you. Like, we're telling ourselves that. See, told you I wasn't going to do good on the GRE. Well, you didn't believe you were going to do good anyway. You got in your head. Casey, talk to us, man.
Yeah, this is funny because this was just talked about on the podcast I was listening to earlier today. Then when I was preparing for the board exam, the MPTE, Kyle Rice had us do an exercise that I'll talk about in a minute. But I just want to say, like, starting out that you have to remember that feelings aren't necessarily facts, right? What you're feeling right now isn't necessarily true yet, or it's not even in existence yet. Like, okay, everybody doesn't feel like doing everything all the time. You know, you might feel tired one day. You might feel anxious about something. Like right now, Joseph had a long day at work. You might not feel like getting on, you know, a live stream or anything like that. But the fact is that it's scheduled and it needs to be done. So that's just one example. Feeling like what you're feeling right now, whether it's fear, anxious, you know, sad, angry at this whole process, whatever it is, it doesn't really exist yet because it hasn't happened. This process, this application, your acceptance, whatever it is, it hasn't, you know, come into fruition yet. So you have to set your feelings aside to get through this whole process efficiently, you know, effectively, correctly, without any mistakes, whether it's your GRE, this whole application process. So if you're in your head, the topic of this live stream, if you're in your feelings, you know, like Kiki challenge, whatever it is, you're not gonna be riding nowhere. Like you're just gonna be stuck there. So another point is, if you can't even handle your feelings now, Joseph just talked about PT school. What you gonna do in PT school? These grades right now, this whole application process, them having you go through all this stuff. It's not just for you to do it. They want to make sure you can get through this whole thing. They're putting you through the gauntlet now, so they understand that you can handle that, so you can handle what's coming next. Then you'll be, you know, a great physical therapist with whatever that has to throw at you. So this exercise that Kyle Rice and the podcast I was listening to today had us do is if you're feeling anxious, whatever it is, just go as deep as you can into that fear, whether it's a notepad, your iPhone, whatever you prefer. Like, go deep into it, write everything down. What would be the worst thing that could happen if I failed, you know, if I got a poor score on the GRE, if I didn't get accepted, if I didn't do this, what's the worst that can happen? Write all that down. Write it down. See how deep into that fear, that anxiety you can go. Then at the end of that, go through that list and say, okay, first one, so what? If that happened, so what? You know, write a little explanation down about it. What would happen? Okay, that happened. Now what would you do? So what? Next, write it down. Go through that whole list. Go as deep as you can into it. Then say, okay, cool. What would happen? What would I do in that situation? Because that's a part, I don't know the fancy term for it, but it's a part of that vivid visualization. So if you get that anxiety out of the way at that one moment, at that big chunk of time, it's better than that low-level anxiety that a lot of you are going through for the next 3 months, for the next 6 months while you're in that waiting game. If your mom ever gave you medicine when you were little, it's just like, just take it now, just get it over with. And you're like, no, I can't. And you stay there, you know, eating your vegetables for an hour long, like I used to do, or, you know, trying to chug that tea down. Then it gets cold and nasty. That's the same thing you're doing with your head, with your feelings, with your emotions right now. So I want you to try that exercise. Like, if you can't get out of your own head, if you can't just pop out of it, I know a lot of times we can't do that. Try this. Try going as deep into it as you can. That's what they had us do for the MPTE. So if we failed, all right, so what? What would be the next step? If something went wrong in your application, so what? What would be the next step? And if that doesn't, well, just try it. Let us know how it works. Then my last point is, if you are going to be in your own head, why not be positive? If everybody's tearing you down already, right? The whole world's coming at you. You got this competition that there was a poll about the other day, you know, in your own head about all that, you know, all these things coming at you, you know, you got your work, your family, whatever it is. Why not be positive to yourself? Why not? Why are you adding on to, you know, bringing yourself down? Why are you adding on to your own negative energy? So if you are going to be in your head, why not be positive about it? Instead of saying, man, I don't know how this GRE is going to go. Why don't you say, I'm going to kill this GRE, man. I know I didn't study as well, but we've said it before. I have all the answers. You know, man, I don't know where to start on this essay, but hey, I'm gonna start writing regardless. I'm gonna make the most powerful essay Pre-PT Grind has ever read. If you're gonna be in your own head regardless, if you can't pop out of it, why not be positive to yourself in your own head. So those are my three big things. Feelings aren't really facts. If you're struggling with this, write it down, go as deep into it as you can. Then why not be positive to yourself? Why not lift yourself up when everything else is kind of pulling you down? So try it. Let us know how it goes.
Couldn't have said it better, y'all. Couldn't have said it better. And as we conclude tonight, I want you guys to remember this. The reason why this topic is so important is because this is going to follow you throughout your entire career. The reason why y'all, you're going to win a lot more than most physical therapists in the game right now, just by mastering this. If you can start figuring out how to get out of your own head, you're going to push yourself further than most current physical therapists. Most current physical therapists get in their head too much to actually be able to do anything worth doing outside of getting their degree. Does that make sense? And I hope I'm not offending anyone, but if I am, I apologize, but I'm not taking back. Like, all I'm saying is you have the potential to be absolutely ridiculously amazing, not only as a physical therapist, but as a clinician and so much more. Imagine if we learned how to not get in our own heads, imagine how much more we could get ourselves to do. Imagine how much more action we would take, period. Right? What does that look like for you coming into a PT program where, unlike anybody else, the other individuals that are in your cohort, right? The other individuals in your cohort are also like freaking out about ABCD. Like, you have trained yourself that, okay, I recognize when I'm starting to get in my head. I know what it looks like at the beginning, and I know I got to pull myself out somehow, whether it's individuals I have, whether I'm following what Casey just said, and I'm making a list of all the things that could potentially go wrong. Let me just go down that rabbit hole real quick and just look at it face to face and just say, okay, so what? So what? Am I going to pull the plug? So what? If I fail my GRE, does that mean that I'm just going to give up on physical therapy? Okay. Okay, I'll just give up. You know what? I've spent the last 4+ years working towards this thing, but because I can't pass the GRE, I'm going to give up on my dream. I'm going to aim low for something else and hit it. Huh? Is that worth it to you? Well, then if it's not, then why are you freaking out about the GRE anyway? Prepare for it. Take it. If it doesn't go well, let's figure out what was wrong. Let's do it again. Get out of your head. So what if you don't get into PT school the first time? Casey didn't. And because he did keep going for it, we currently have pre-PT grind. Because my plans with the pre-PT stuff I was doing was to take it school to school as an individual, not online. Online was Casey's idea. So what if you don't get into PT school? All the things we're scared about when we look back on them are not as crazy. Right now, a lot of the things that I was terrified of as a pre-PT, looking back as a current physical therapist, I'm like, yo, I was tripping. Like, they were not as bad as they were. It always just seems worse in the moment. Yeah. Get out of your head. Just do it. And if you have people around you that are forcing you or leading you to get in your head, get them out of the way. Like, they got to go. I'm not saying end your friendships. Y'all, I'm sure you have some great friends. Like, I'm not saying end your friendships. I'm not saying, like, disconnect yourself from those individuals. I'm just saying that when it comes to what you're pursuing, when it comes to your goal, when it comes to what you want, go get it and don't let anyone stop you. And if they're leading you to get in your own head, if they're leading you to doubt yourself, they got to go.
Don't let yourself stop you either, though.
Say what?
I said, don't let yourself stop you either.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, you got to work. You got to make sure you're good first.
Yeah.
But if you can get to the point where you're not letting yourself get in your own head, and now there's other people that are still trying to, add that voice, okay, they got to go. They got to go. Not physically, but in terms of your realm, there's certain people that I don't really talk to as much about physical therapy anymore, just because I know if we go down that route, they're not going to be in approval of where I'm trying to go. I still got big dreams, y'all. Casey still got big dreams. Does that make sense? And we're still going to keep pursuing them, but it has been our ability to let go and refrain from getting so deep down a rabbit hole that we refuse or refrain from taking action. If we don't take action, we don't even show up on this live stream. there's been certain Thursday nights where I've just had like a crappy one, as in I'm exhausted, I'm fatigued, and we still trying to show up for pre-PT chat live. So I said, all right, Joseph, you got to lock in because you got some pre-PTs to serve. Same with Casey. So we have to learn to do that on the regular. So we're only telling you to do things that we have to do. But if you want to be great, not only as a pre-PT, but as a PT student, as a physical therapist, and as an individual in general, get out of your head. Like we said at the beginning, y'all, if you stay in your head, you're dead. Y'all have a good one.